Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Eric Murphy. It is July 22nd, or Gesundheit. It's July 20th, 2025. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. Thank you so much for joining me. I am flying solo today, which is kind of good because I've got a topic and I want to talk about it. I'm going to put the phone number out there because this is a call-in show and it is built on conversations, which means we need to have one. If you want to call into the show, let me put the phone number up there before we get started. 412-SKEPGEN, that's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Give me a call. I've got a call screener ready to talk to you, and I want to hear from you. With that said, hey, things are going crazy, and it feels like that's always the case. And every once in a while, we get to have a conversation that maybe might not be as terrible, but fun. There has been a conversation this week that I am seeing happen over and over and over again, and it may seem trivial, and it is, but I think it's also telling. I titled this episode, Superman is Woke. And what I'm talking about is the 2025 James Gunn Superman that just recently came out in theaters. People are going nuts over it. They're saying that it is pro-immigrant, and people are arguing about it, and I'm really not talking about that. People are saying that it is pro-woke or anti-woke. I really don't care. I do have a perspective, and I'm not seeing people talk about it, and I think that from a progressive point of view, it is woke and it's bad for a very specific reason. And I'm going to lay that out right now. Let me make sure here the mic is working okay. Everybody's looking good. All right. So here's the deal. My cat just wants to be the star of the show, huh? Huh, sweetie? Okay. So when we're talking about Superman, I feel like we need to have a bit of a conversation about a couple of things leading up to it. The first is, what is Superman? It has, as a concept, as a character, it's been around forever, right? And I feel like talking about it, what is Superman, is a really, really old, I feel like it's been done to death, but it definitely is a preface that I need to give a bit to. Superman is 100 years old as a character. He has been around long enough that we've seen so many different incarnations. And I feel like people say, oh, Superman is everything, so Superman is nothing. There is no definition of Superman that has lasted through the ages. And because of that, we can't really draw any conclusions about the character. And I think that's incorrect. In the context of the United States, we have this character. So let me just pull this up. See, this is the downside of producing and hosting at the same time, is I don't get to smoothly go into these things when I say it with the producer on the line ready to hit the button. So when we're talking about like golden age Superman, right? We have, this version of a strong man who is building this wish fulfillment, right? What if you had the power to stop problems that you see? What if you could, save people and do these extraordinary things? It's kind of, I don't know about y'all, but when I was a kid, I would go on, I'd go on road trips, and when I was, sitting bored in the back of the car, I'd stare out the window and I'd, look at the mountains passing or a field, and I'd imagine, myself running as fast as the car. It felt like that. It's kind of that in comic form, at least to me. But over time, it came to become something else, right? Superman is indestructible. So it's not about whether or not he can do a thing. It's about whether or not he should. Right? He got to be this character that you put yourself into. And so you have, let me put right here, you have Superman fighting Hitler, right? During World War II. You have a jingoistic Superman. You know what? I'll actually just put the Golden Age Superman back up. Let me get that back. right? This kind of, patriot. But again, I don't think Superman represents government as much as Superman represents, people's view of themselves and how they view government, or how they view what people's responsibility is to each other. And ultimately, that's it. What is Superman? Superman is you. Superman is what your hopes and your dreams are, and how you would put that onto a character that could do all of the things that you can't do. And it's not always a good thing, right? You can get to the injustice universe, right, where Superman becomes evil. But what is it at the core? Superman in this he's heartbroken. He had been led to kill Lois Lane accidentally, and decides that humans are not can't rule themselves, and so he becomes this dictator. But that doesn't mean that he's not you, right? That doesn't mean that he's not embodying things that we don't feel. When we feel disempowered, when we feel hurt, we lash out. And in that way, Superman, again, is us. And so what is Superman? Well, I think Superman is a test for today, right? I think we can take a look at what is going on in the culture by figuring out what Superman means today. And that gets us to this. In my mind, this was a lot smoother, but my Stream Deck is not working, and so I'm needing to manually set everything, so just be patient with me. So here's the deal. Yes, Superman is an alien. We can talk about the immigrant perspective, but I don't want to. Instead, what I want to talk about, how this is toxic, how it is woke, and in a bad way from the leftist perspective. If you haven't seen the movie, minor spoilers. I'm not going to give all of it, but I am going to give away part of what's in the movie. Partway through, you have Superman being disgraced by Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor uncovers the second part of Superman's parents' message to him, and it is a message of domination, that he has been sent to Earth to dominate it and to populate it. And Lex Luthor uses this against him. He, in a way cancels him. We can talk about cancel stuff, if we want to, but go with me here. Superman he knows that that's not what he's doing. But he looks at this accusation and he sees that he was disgraced socially, and what he decides to do is cave. So Lex Luthor creates a pocket dimension, and Superman willingly goes in to be removed from society. And I think that is the most woke shit I've ever heard of in my life. And I think that is exactly what leftists do. They crucify themselves. I think that they willingly disempower themselves because, like Superman in this movie, I think there's a want to be liked more than I want to do what's right. And I think that is a social signaling that is at the core of how a lot of leftists identify. And I consider myself on the left. And so I'm not, I'm not coming at this from an angry, like, I'm calling it like I see it. This character is you, especially if you're on the left. When faced with hard times, when faced with existential threat or, social outcast, social ostracization or whatever the case is, he doesn't fight for himself. He doesn't say, hey, I know what I'm about. He says, oh, well, I'm going to willingly step down. And in the movie, it works out because in the movie, he kind of gets exonerated. He falls back into public favor. He comes out and he, wins the day. Spoilers, right? But that's not how the real world works. In the real world, you crucify yourself, you willingly disempower yourself, and then it keeps going, but this time it's now without you. The hey, everybody realized just how wrong they were doesn't isn't what happens. And I think that that's worth talking about. Because yeah, we can talk about, whether or not this is fiction, it's fun, but it's also telling. And I think it's right at the heart of what a lot of leftists and liberals are telling themselves. So that said, let me put the phone number out there. I'll talk a little bit more, but hey, it is a call-in show. That means I need you. So let me get the phone number up there. It is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN to call in. And we would love to hear from you. All right. So while that goes, I'll get a little bit more detail. Give me just a second. It's a live show. Okay. Yeah. I normally do philosophy, and I feel like a lot of people are going to do takes about how Elon Musk is Lex Luthor and how the character of Lex Luthor represents capitalism and how America's relationship with capitalism changes. And you can see it by the evolution of Lex Luthor. You can see how the current incarnation kind of smacks of similarities with Elon Musk. But only a few years ago, you had, Lex Luthor as the head of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. And before that, you had, these kind of corporate fat cats, from the 80s and 90s. And as that changes, you see that relationship change. And I don't know, do we need a Superman? Is part of the problem the idea that a single source can be the arbiter of justice? Do we need to wait to be saved? Do we need to hope to be the one hero? Those are other perspectives that, I don't know, are a little more timeless, but at the same time, you're seeing that. You also have an analog for Israel and Palestine in the movie, and weird takes on that. And I feel like all of those are getting brought up, but the willing self-sacrifice for no fucking good reason other than because you care more about optics than you do about results. That's the part that I think nobody's talking about. And it hurts. It hurts because it's exactly what's happening. Let's talk to Jay in Florida and see what Jay has to say about it. Jay, you are live on the show.
Hey.
What's good, man? Doing good. I'm glad you called in. Let me get you up on the lower third. There we go. All right, what's on your mind?
Well, first, I have to say Superman is my favorite character in all of comics. He is the reason, or one of the main reasons, I kind of like the American dream. So when I realized what your topic was today, I was like, ooh, I really have to call in because I just saw the movie recently.
Good.
And I really loved it. It's just that you said you think him being super woke is bad.
So
I'm like,
yeah, the thing is, I feel like, number one, there are multiple definitions of woke. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Woke, the way a lot of conservatives use it, is just another way of saying politically correct. They used to say PC, now they say woke. Those are kind of interchangeable to them. But to me, I view it as more of a performative liberalism.
Okay.
And I don't know, what's your take? And then we'll kind of piece it apart.
Okay, so my take is that what the movie does really well, and what Superman does really well in general, is that it kind of points a mirror back at everyone to say, in this situation where you have someone who is doing something sacrificial, how would you act? What would your reaction be? And if your reaction is the opposite of what you're seeing the characters in the show do, then it highlights, okay, maybe you're not doing the right thing. It's not just about Superman punching Nazis, it's about everything else that happens around him. When he does sacrificial stuff in all comics and all of his stories, to me, or at least when I really interact with it, it's not just him, right? Because if the people around him didn't change their points of view in some things, then his sacrifice would go unneeded, and then he would just kind of pull himself away from society, as he has done before. Just to be clear, um, so I think that's the point that gets me, and I think that it was subtle enough in the movie that it will get across to people where they will leave the movie going, oh, that's a great movie. And then in the back of their mind, thought will come and say, okay, if someone's being sacrificial, what do I do? Do I try and find out what their actual real intentions are based on what this is? Or do I just take what this one authority is saying? That makes sense, kind of?
No, it does make sense, and I'm really happy you bring it up because I totally disagree with you.
Okay.
So I feel like I come from a background where being raised the way that you get attention is you don't brag about yourself. You need other people to see what you're doing and raise you up kind of in an organic way, otherwise it's inauthentic. And self-sacrifice and then recognition of self-sacrifice required other people to be vigilant and then praise you, right? And that is how you can get praise and feel it authentically. I think that's in a lot of conservative communities and places like that. That was kind of the vibe. That's how we did things. That's not how we should behave socially. If someone is sacrificing themselves, I don't believe that we live in a world where their sacrifice is going to be very beneficial. Because, like, I'll give you an example, right? In the movie, when public opinion changes back, we like him, we want him back, he comes back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it required this public opinion to change. But right now, the downside is we currently there's this Jeffrey Epstein stuff going on here in the United States, right? You have the Trump administration is refusing to declassify some things or release some things or saying things don't exist in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and his clientele list. Both the left and the far right are really, really pissed about it. And evidence is getting dropped regularly. And public opinion isn't really shifting. It doesn't matter how many bad things Donald Trump can do. Once the truth comes out, everyone's opinion isn't shifting. Right? Like, I don't know what you can do at this point that would shift those things. Because the truth isn't shifting public opinion right now. Is it?
No, I would agree with you there, but it's also something that I think I hope James does this in the story. In comics, there is this thing where Lex becomes president, and this is after he's done a bunch of things that are wrong and that the public knows that he's done wrong, but he still is able to sway people and get people on his side so he can win and become president, right? And of course, in that case, even though Superman is normally a guy who goes by the book, he decides in many situations to just disagree with the president and just not do that, right? I think that if we're looking for like public opinion to change, it's not just something sacrificial that needs to happen. It is that the people who are experiencing it need to recognize that that thing is bad or that person is bad, and then at least be willing to maybe change their mind. For me right now, there are a lot of people who are unwilling to change their mind because they think they're going to benefit from certain things, and because of that, they're just stubborn, just ignoring the obvious truth that's there. I don't know if that's going to change.
Well, and I really don't give a fuck about a lot of... So, like, to me, if Superman was going to do the right thing, you'd see Lex Luthor, who is funding wars overseas in other countries, right, is instigating violence, is the core of a lot of the bad in the world, who is not getting arrested, who is not seeing justice in the United States, who is not getting pulled up by the Hague, by the International Court for war crimes. What Superman should do is pick Lex Luthor up, zip him over to the his Fortress of Solitude, drop him in, said if no one's going to jail this guy, I will.
Okay, so
If that's the
hold
case,
on.
then do that. But don't wait
So
for everyone's fucking opinion to change like that, because that's not the right thing. That's just caring more about popularity. Why didn't he
okay,
do that?
okay, so we've kind of come back around to this point where it's like I agree with you 100% on that. That's what he should do. That's what he ought to do. Um, but I because he doesn't do that, I don't think it's like bad. I just think that he should do that more. But that's him being more woke, in my view.
I think he's making a value judgment. And that's okay, because I think that's the point of me bringing this up, right? We're using this fiction to talk about how people are acting in the real world. And I think that this is part of the leftist ethos that cares more about perception than it does about justice.
Ah,
If
okay.
if Superman cared more about justice than his public image, he would not have hopped into a fucking pocket dimension owned by an evil, tech oligarch who's funding wars overseas. Like, that's not what thing he would fucking do. He can care about justice, but he doesn't care about it as much as public perception of him. Am I wrong?
Interesting. I mean, he does. I think that for Clark Kal-El, how he sees it is that him being the sacrificial lamb, the one who's saying, "I did something wrong, so I'm going to hold myself accountable for whatever it is the story trying to highlight the height of goodness that that character can be, or what everyone should kind of strive to. Not necessarily saying that the character doesn't value good in that situation, because in that same situation there was that war, which is analogous to a war that's happening currently.
Yeah, Israel
That
Palestine.
right, that Superman acted on before the movie started, and that's what caused some kind of backlash for it, right? Um, by the way, I love his action in it and I love the way he spoke about it, because it really highlights the character himself going, "This is something good that I did, and I didn't do it because of where I am from or whatever. I did it because people were dying, and I wanted to save people." To me, in that moment when he decided to voluntarily go there, he did it for reasons to say something wrong is happening. It's not that the people don't like me, but like I did something wrong to an extent, and I need to be held accountable for it. So I'm going to go to hold myself accountable for it. I'm not going to go and fight and try and stop this war, which I want to do, but I'm going to hold myself accountable for this thing, even though it's small. It might be less important.
Hold on. What specifically is he holding himself accountable for?
Deceiving the people, I guess is how we thought about it. That he gave the people an idea that he was sent here to protect them, but then the message that he got, even though he didn't know that was the other part of the message, was a different message. So to me, it's like he's holding himself accountable for something that he's not necessarily accountable for, because he didn't know it, and that's not his mission, and that's not how he acts. But to the height of his goodness, he's taking this as something wrong that he did and trying to hold himself accountable for it,
That feels exactly like caring more about public
performative.
opinion, because there's no accountability that he needs to take on for that. Right? I mean, I'm sure you agree with me with that. There's no accountability. There's no justice or rightness in doing that.
Right. It would be more just or more right to help the actual war that's happening, which kind of did come around to it in the end, but it would be more just for him to just act in that situation instead of holding himself accountable to this like lesser thing that's there, which that's why I get what you're saying in terms of it kind of being performative, but I guess it's that I think the story kind of uses that as a way to say something else to the other people who don't see it necessarily the way you and I see it.
I think this is just liberals telling on themselves. Yeah, we're going to do the right thing eventually, once everybody agrees with us and likes us again. And we're going to sacrifice ourselves and make sure that we're not part of the solution until that happens. If anything, he's keeping the world hostage until he's absolved. And then he can fix things.
And then you can fix things.
Yeah.
Okay, I see that. I see that. I see that. That's
And
not a part of the movie that I necessarily enjoyed overall with
mhm.
the whole thing.
And I mean, it's fun. It's campy. There are a lot of takes people can take on it. I
Yeah.
just think that this particular take is that leftists are really, really excited at the idea of crawling up on that cross and crucifying themselves so that they can be martyrs to whatever cause without actually fixing it because they care about more about perception.
Well, I to add to it, um, I think you have a valid point there in terms of the perception because he didn't really like turn himself in until after that whole thing with crypto, which like he knew exactly where it was coming from, but I think he was probably maybe holding himself more accountable for that happening in the public sphere than necessarily, yeah, everything he did kind of was perception.
And I do want
Yeah.
to I do want to clarify with Justice. We had a in the live chat, Bree, I love you. I think you're wrong on this take. It's Bree pointed out, Eric, what you're talking about is vigilantism, not justice. That's a different definition of vigilantism because vigilantism is justice, just not enforced by a government.
Yeah.
And so, like, you can talk about vigilantism being bad and needing to, whether or not we should control who is the arbiter of justice or who should, put justice into effect. But I do firmly believe that, vigilantism is just justice done by the individual, not by the state.
So
So
I
it's
guess
still
I
justice.
guess I guess the opposite is would be if Superman, the guy who is literally God on Earth, is being a vigilante. What would the opposite of him be? Because typically, he's opposed to by Batman, who is straight up vigilant, who will just throw people in prison, except he's not going to kill them. Um, so how do you see that dynamic kind of working, considering that both of these characters are woke in their stories? How do you see them being kind of opposed in like a storytelling?
Well, I think that the relationship that the reader has to the character is the big difference. I believe that Superman is that thing that we set our aspirations on. And
Mm-hmm.
so, post 9/11, Superman, reflected American sentiments about what they want to be and how they want to be and their relationship with power. 90s Superman, right? Injustice Superman, like all of these things
Mm-hmm.
are us dealing with and kind of making manifest our wish fulfillment and feelings. Where Batman, yeah, it's wish fulfillment, but
Because to me, Batman is the wish fulfillment where you just want someone to beat this guy up and throw him in prison. That's the wish fulfillment I get from Batman. Where Superman is the guy who goes, the system is wrong and broken, but let's not necessarily completely destroy it. Let's get the
mm,
super bad people out.
mm. But is it like if Superman is just for holding up the system and Batman isn't, then why does Batman still rely on the justice system? He just doesn't like cops. If anything, Superman is just doesn't think the cops are doing a good job, and so kind of does what they do. But the rest of it, turning it over to the courts and all of that, in jails, that's all part of the system, and Batman's for that too. So are they just pro system but on different levels?
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly how I see it. They're both pro system. So they necessarily aren't looking to completely overhaul the whole system. They're looking to take the cogs, if you want to say that are bad, out and put good cogs in the space. But they're both going about it in like different ways. Superman is trying to be compassionate and hopeful and catching the bad people as much as he can and beating them up as much as he can without killing them. While Batman is like, yeah, you're a bad guy. I'm just gonna beat you up and throw you in Arkham because I'm not gonna trust the cops to do it because they're not gonna do it. And that's how they both kind of interact with the system to kind of change and adjust the system. Which to me exemplifies how a lot of Americans think about the actual judicial system. They think that some people can change it from the inside and some people can change it from the outside, but the system itself can be changed and adjusted to be better.
I think inherent in that is the biggest problem. You're not changing it from the inside or the outside. I think Superman and Batman both are implicitly trusting that the justice system is going to be the right thing.
Hmm.
When you turn the bad guys over, they can talk
Right.
about police reform maybe and how Batman's relationship is with police reform, but ultimately they're not changing anything. And they're definitely not changing the way those people are getting tried. That they are pro system, and the system is preventing people like Lex Luthor from getting arrested.
Right.
So
And in some case, enabling the release of these people, because even though they do get arrested, some of these people do end up back on the street
yeah,
again, causing more. Like Carlisle. Carlisle is a big guy that Batman has fought for a very long time. Joker is someone he's fought for a very long time. Um, so it's just like there are only maybe a few situations where we've seen Superman go super hardcore, and it's just that he's kind of ended up being pictured as a authoritarian,
mhm.
and like I get that slant, but I don't necessarily think that that's how it would go if he decided that he was just gonna be the law and enforce the law, right? Um,
Well,
to my mind,
I mean
if Superman,
that's just the injustice timeline.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I mean, they kind of did some of that a little bit in like the '90s
Mhm.
cartoon one, where he was like a kind of, but not exactly. But for me, if it was that Superman was going to be a full-on vigilante, like we were thinking of him, he would really only focus on the more egregious people. He wouldn't necessarily focus on the people who are like small criminals, small town people. Him growing up in the small town and getting to know people, he would understand that there are different facets of people, because as he is now, he does understand those facets, and that's why he is so forgiving and welcoming and seeing
Well,
the best in people.
and we and these are all justifications for their vigilantism. Like now I'm kind of on this as a as a take. I just want to be clear, right? Can
Yeah.
are Superman and Batman ever not vigilantes? That's a
No, I
question.
think they both are. I think they
Yeah.
both are, but just different slants.
I do have a couple of other calls I want to get to, but
Yeah.
Jay, as always, we wind up agreeing. But I appreciate it. There is someone who is very upset at me. They're saying that I'm flat out lying, and
Oh,
we're gonna get to them. But am I gonna see you in the after show?
yeah, for sure.
Rock on. All right, I'll see you then.
Later.
All right. I do want to preface that I do love the character. Even when I was a kid, kids would play superheroes, and I want to be Batman. I want to be this. I always wanted to be Superman. That was just the objectively best character to pick. I don't have any, yeah, but I do have an issue with this James Gunn 2025 take in this particular piece. Let's talk to Ethan in Michigan, who thinks I am flat out lying, and I'm totally okay with that. Ethan, how's it going?
Hello. I did. I didn't say anything about you being totally okay with the fact that you're lying. Necessarily.
Fair
Anyway,
enough.
that shouldn't have
True
been
enough.
in the thing. I always wanted to be Spider-Man myself, by the way. Anyway, but
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you will get me on a tangent if you just pick a character, and we will never get to the topic. Please, don't
Yeah,
let me interrupt. Go
true.
ahead.
Yeah. No, you're literally lying about Superman's motivations for turning himself in. You're just washing away any nuance and saying, yeah, no, he just jumped in a hole. Like the last caller touched on a little bit, the primary purpose for him turning himself in was to find crypto. And he didn't know shit about the whole pocket universe thing, or the fact that he wouldn't be able to get out. Hell, he didn't even know about Lex being involved until it was frankly too late to back out of it.
Really, that wasn't motivated by any of any of that was going on with his recording from his parents that played no part in it, that coming out?
That
Or
was
the public sentiment changing around it? Am I
That
mixing up my chronology of the movie?
No, you've got the chronology right. That was what initiated the whole government. That was what Lex used for. I hate that I'm spoiling so much for anyone who
Spoilers,
hasn't seen
everybody. Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I mean, we're not giving away the end. If anything, it's just the meat of the hard part. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Not that the end isn't obvious, it's just the details that aren't. But anyway, yeah, no, Lex used the message to convince the government, hey, Superman's a bad guy. And you should let me do whatever the fuck I want.
Mhm.
And they did, because reasons. And Superman did have an emotional crisis, because the whole this was the basis for me. It was a cognitive dissonance thing, basically. It was the primary foundations of who he thought he was being shaken.
And so,
But ultimately, he did say, "Look, I have to find the dog." Is the thing here?
I guess part of it is, I think part of this take. I mean, obviously, I want to piss people off, get them to call in, and we can argue about it. Because how else am I going to get to argue with people about the topic?
Okay, but you shouldn't
that
start
said,
with a lie if you want.
Well,
an honest
no, but here's the
discussion,
thing:
man.
if you lived in Metropolis, that is exactly what you thought happened. That is exactly what is being put forward to the public.
Okay.
And if
you should have clarified that you meant in universe, that's how it looked.
Well, but here's the thing: is I think that is kind of a piece of the crux here that we're not going to get to unless we talk about it, and that I've started to point out with Jay there, that if somebody is climbing up on a cross to crucify themselves because they think that because public opinion isn't in their favor, should we implicitly think, oh, they have a secret plan? Oh, they have a real reason they're doing this, and I'm going to support. I want to call out every person who has the power to make positive change and doesn't, because they are martyring themselves instead.
That's totally fair.
And I think that that should absolutely be called out. And to be fair, you're right. That would be a lot to put on a title, though. And it definitely wouldn't have gotten you to call in. And it definitely wouldn't have allowed us to talk about this very specific thing. We need to call out every single time we're seeing people prioritize martyrdom. Especially if it's martyrdom that's not helping anybody. I think that, outside of the story of, having an ulterior motivation to go into this pocket dimension, the larger narrative of the government and public opinion turning against, and then everyone going, you need to go in the hole, and him going in the hole. No, that shouldn't be the perspective. That shouldn't be, no. And if anything, I don't want to continue to push narratives where people think that is the right thing to do. I think that in the real world, there are consequences to that. And I know that you've called in and we've specifically talked about, because I can't stop bringing it up, the January 6th committee.
I definitely didn't call in about Jan 6th.
No, I must be mixing. The point that I normally bring up.
The only other time I've called in was when, I'm forgetting their name. And I barely came through, and I felt terrible because I was totally inaudible.
Then I totally got you mixed up with someone else. I apologize. Let me then clarify. In the real world, right? Under the Biden administration, the January 6th committee was tasked with investigating what happened on January 6th with the insurrection in D.C. The Biden administration left that to House Republicans to do, because they wanted the optics to be that Republicans are holding their own accountable, and it's not a witch hunt. And instead, what happened was a lot of people who should have been held accountable were let go. And it was softballed in a way that it should not have been. You know,
Yeah.
I think that there are American representatives in the Senate, in Congress, who actively worked against the nation and should be stripped of their role. You know, I think there's constitutional grounds for that. You know, and those things didn't happen. Why? Because the Biden administration cared more about optics than it did about justice.
Oh, you're not gonna get me to disagree with you on the larger
Right.
point you're trying to make. I'm pretty sure I agree with all the points you're actually going for.
Come on, Ethan.
I'm-
Throw me a
I'm
bone. No, I'm glad. I'm glad.
But yeah, no, it's frustrating to me that you were taking away all the nuance and acting like this one part of the situation was all there was, and that was how you were talking about it. And I don't think that's the way to have a good or honest conversation.
That's fair. I did want to have this larger conversation though, and
I get it.
it's hard to introduce the topic. I appreciate
Very
you
fair.
doing that though, and I'm always happy to be called out on my bullshit. So you doing that is just fine, and I'm happy you called in. I'm sorry I mistook you for somebody else. I feel like not doing right by you today, Ethan, but I appreciate you.
No, it's fine. Yeah, no, the call I'd had. Oh, I really feel terrible that I can't remember their name right now. But anyway, no, I'd called in about trying to make a hypothetical, and it was just a clusterfuck of miscommunication. And so it was a very bad call.
Oh,
yeah.
Thus is the nature of live shows. Honestly, every live show needs to come with a dollop of humility and self-compassion.
Yeah. Anyway,
So
sorry, I'm not fodder for a more interesting call. I'll let you,
you called me
Go
out on my
on.
bullshit.
Someone who
That's
is.
interesting.
if you say so.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good one.
You
Hopefully,
too.
I'll be able to pop in the after show.
I would like that. I'll see you then. All right. Yeah, and I am going to take more calls, and I do want to let you know that there is an after show. The link is in the description for this video. And if you like the show, if you like SKEPGEN, consider supporting it. One of the best things you can do is hit the subscribe button, like the video, share it out to anybody you think would be interested in watching it. And if you want to support the show, consider going to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. With that said, so John in Canada, let's hold off on you coming until Tori is back on the air. So I'm going to drop you out of the queue. Let's see. Yeah. And then moving on to Chris in Scotland. Chris, you're live on the show.
Hi there, Eric. I was just calling in to say that I would argue that Superman has always been woke, basically. In the sense that woke is an awareness of sort of cultural inequality and things like that. I would say that Superman always has been, even in a comic quite a few years ago, where some people were harassing refugees. Superman turns up and they expect Superman to take their side because, he's a superhero and an American and, truth, justice, the American way and all that stuff. But Superman reminds them, well, I am an immigrant. He's somebody who came from another place who was taken in and, he's always sort of, in my opinion, been woke. At least if the definition is kind of an awareness of social inequality and things like that.
Maybe? I don't know. I feel like if anything, he's a reflection of political ethos, but not necessarily like I don't think Superman gave a fuck about inequality until public opinion was talking about racial inequality. He wasn't
That is a good point.
He wasn't fighting for injustice like that. Not the way that he did until that was in the public zeitgeist. If anything, he is that manifestation of what people are thinking about and how they think their best self is. So I think you could say Superman has always been political,
That's true.
but I don't know if he's always been woke.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know. It sucks. But if anything,
not
he's
at
a
all.
populist.
But you're making a good point. I mean, all I would say is that his sort of arch enemy is, one of the richest people in the fictional world. So that seems pretty woke. But that's a good point. Historically, he probably hasn't been quite as quite as culturally aware in things as he is now. That is a good point that I hadn't really considered.
And I think that I don't think any superhero movie has really gone over the evils of hoarding wealth and the negative impact that has on society. How money needs to move in an economy for that economy to be healthy and for the people in it to be able to live their best lives. Yes, he's against Lex Luthor, but not because Lex Luthor is rich. I would love to see a Superman who is against Lex Luthor because Lex Luthor is rich. But he's not, and he's friends with Batman, who is, if anything, just as rich. So money's not the problem.
Damn, you're right. Actually, now that I've given it some thought, I think you're probably right. I would say that now he's woke, and he has been woke for a good while. But certainly, at least in his original form, he would have been a reflection of values of the time, where it's changed from for our truth. I'm sorry, I'm going to do a horrendous butchering of your accent. For our truth, justice in the American way.
Honestly,
to, for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. That's a good point.
I think I prefer it in your accent. You're good.
Thank you.
But this is definitely not a like advice show. I want you to disagree with me. The fact that I disagreed is like that's just fine. But yeah, no, I think he hasn't always been woke. He has always been a populist. He's always been what is on the mind of people and what is important to them. And
that's true.
If he cares so much about what's on the mind of people, which seems to be a through line always, then the idea that he would cave to public pressure, even if it's in perception, just making sure after our last call, Ethan, you're right. But by public perception, he caved to social pressure and hopped in a hole. And that's not what we need. And I think that there are too many people right now, at least in the United States, who are idolizing that view, who are thinking what I should really do is remove myself from being effective.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that, when you said when it said that Superman was woke, I thought it was in reference particularly to the new movie where he's a lot of people are saying that he's woke, but whereas in quite a few comics he's and other appearances he's challenged big business and his son's gay and he's very accepting of that in the comics. And
does he challenge big business?
But you are right. This is something that is fairly recent over the Superman mythos.
Yeah, and again, like when I think about woke, there's the Republican, right, the right-leaning perspective that is just the new word it's the new word for politically correct. But woke, we can talk about its origins, but when it became popular, it became popular as a pejorative.
Yes.
It did not start as a pejorative, but it became popular as a pejorative. So using woke as a pejorative, and in this case, I am using it as a pejorative. Superman is woke, and the pejorative piece of that is it cares more about perspective than it cares more about how people are viewing it and being popular than it does doing the right thing. And I think that that is a very clear reflection on what's going on in the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I mean, I must admit, I've often used woke as a pejorative myself, and I'm pretty left wing, more left wing, than yeah. Well, I'm very left wing. But when I use woke, the problem is so many people use this word in so many different ways that I have often used it to refer to sort of what I suppose you'd call sort of people who sort of speak on behalf of people they know nothing about, and people who try very hard to seem like they're,
so you do it the same way I do, right? Woke can be a
So you use
pejorative,
it
and
that
it
way?
can be used by the left when you're calling each other out for stupid shit like that.
I see. I thought I was the only one who used it that way.
No, that's the way that I
use
was
it to
using it in the
refer
title
to-
for this episode.
Wow, I misunderstood. Yeah, I use it sort of to refer to people who want to be seen as left-wing, but who aren't really, essentially virtue signalers,
Yeah.
people who kind of they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. They'll call someone out for the slightest sort of, misstep or whatever, but they kind of don't really do anything to actually make the world a better place.
Yeah. Another way of saying that is performative allyship.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, that's a good point.
No, I'm just trying to help give definitions to what you're saying. Yeah, I think, Chris, I think we're on the same page. But that's funny. If anything, out of this call, now we're on this show still running with this woke is a pejorative or woke as a pejorative, and who gets to use it and what we mean by it. But I appreciate your contribution. I'm always happy to talk to you.
I appreciate that, and I always really enjoy talking to you. I kind of misunderstood. I had come into the show a little bit late, and I had misunderstood the title. But yeah, I must admit you've slightly shattered my perceptions of Superman there. But
I mean, if like, what is the term? Like if you want to check the acidity of a thing, there's that acid paper that you'll use to kind of determine whether or not, it's too acidic or too basic. I feel like Superman is a really good way to tell what is in people's minds, what their hopes are, and how they view themselves in society. If you had the power to change things, how would you do it? And what would you do when you faced backlash? Well, what Superman did is that. And I think that that's a good way for us to go, hey, is this in our values? Are we really doing that? Are we okay with that so long as we have an ulterior motive, right? Is it cool for everybody to think that that's the right thing to do so long as we have an ulterior motive? Right now, it feels like the conversation is taking that for granted, and I want to call that out and say that's bullshit. But
do you see the fact that Superman... I'm sorry, I interrupted you there,
No,
pal.
what's up?
On you go. I was just going to say, do you see the fact that Superman has become more sort of, I suppose, more progressive and more culturally aware in terms of standing up for refugees, being, accepting of the LGBT community? Do you see that as a positive sign for where our society is going, despite the the dark shadow that seems to be hanging over quite a lot of countries recently in terms of the far right?
no, unfortunately, I think it just says something about the people who are writing Batman. I don't know how much you follow DC Comics, but do you remember the whole to-do around Batgirl?
I don't. Which to-do is this?
This was a couple of years back. I think, it was more than a couple now. There was an entire storyline that had built up to her getting gay married. And the pressure was put on the writers to not make that happen. I think that, and everybody walked out, but like there was a whole kerfuffle around it.
Jeez.
I think that says more about the writers. My hope is that the writers are speaking about what people want, what their hopes and dreams are.
Well, I hope so. I mean, isn't that what Superman is? He's a reflection of our hopes and our aspirations,
Yeah.
you know? People will go to Marvel for sort of realistic heroes they can relate to, whereas people go for DC for, you know, heroes they can look up to and aspire to in many ways.
Yeah. There's a term, and because it's a live show and I can't just sit and scratch my chin until I come up with it, I'll see if I can remember it at some point in the show. So I do have a little bit more to say, but I'm just gonna have to wait until I can remember it. But until
Listen, that's
then,
okay.
Chris, thank you for calling in.
You're very welcome. Have an amazing night.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
There's no ethical consumption under capitalism, is the statement.
Oh, I
right?
love that.
So
Yeah.
I think further said, it's not just consumption. You know, capitalism in any large enough scale cannot be ethical. Like, I don't think you can make a certain amount of money ethically. And
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I'm a socialist myself. I think that, you know, you can obviously make a certain amount of money through legitimate hard work, but
sure.
after a certain point, you cannot become wealthy without exploiting others.
No, and there are plenty of socialist billionaires, which
That's
is
true.
You know, which only says that, you know, the socialism itself doesn't fix the problem. The problem is that hoarding of wealth. I would love to see a Superman that is against Lex Luthor because he's a billionaire, and a Superman that says, "Fuck you, Batman. You know, quit playing with your $1 trillion toys trying to be a vigilante. That money can actually solve the actual problems that Gotham is having. You're fucking evil."
Absolutely.
So
The mental health crisis, for one.
yeah, like I would love to see Superman do that. That would be a real woke Superman that I'd be behind. But that said,
I would be entirely behind that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that said, that would be vigilantism, and I think our next caller wants to talk about it. So I'm going to move on to Bree.
Okay.
But Chris, thank you for calling
Absolutely.
in.
Have an amazing night, pal.
You
Bye.
too. Take care, buddy.
Thanks.
I love the international audience. Like, the Superman character is one that is very steeped in the United States. And so having numerous callers from outside of the United States talking about it, I feel gives perspective that we don't normally get. And I'm really, really happy to see that. Bree. Hey, Bree, how's it going?
All right, pretty good.
I called you out on the air. I said I love you, but I disagree. You want to talk about vigilantism and justice, and I want to hear it. What's up?
All right, so, well, I should preface this first by saying that I have not seen the new Superman movie, and I'm probably not going to see it for at least quite some time. So I have no way of knowing if what you said about the movie is accurate or not. I don't know. I don't really even care too much.
Oh,
superheroes.
I think in part I was doing the, you know, not wholly authentic, but trying to spark a discussion. And if it pissed people off and got them involved, all the better. Mm-hmm. But you want to talk about something kind of at the core of these points, and that is vigilantism and justice.
I think it is actually related to the Superman character and how he's been portrayed through the years, because one of the things that Superman has always struggled with specifically is the fact that he is just so much more powerful than the humans around him. Even the other humans that have their own superpowers and stuff. He is kind of like the tank, you know. I mean, he's a powerhouse.
Yeah. So how does that interact with the concepts of justice or vigilantism?
Has to remember that he can't just force his own will onto everyone around him.
Okay.
That's not justice.
So what is justice?
Justice is this is going to go back to my my favorite little niche obsession, is that humans are a social species, and we evolved to live in groups.
Okay.
And justice is therefore inherent to the group dynamic because it is the group as a whole, or in part, depending on exactly how they set up their ways of enforcing their rules, to say, you have broken the rules and we are punishing you for it.
Okay.
It is a public accounting. It is a group decision.
So
It's not just on the whims of one person.
okay. So I think that there are lots of historical cases of vigilantism that I would consider justice. People standing up to, slaveholders and freeing slaves, right? Or sometimes enacting violence in order to do what they thought was right, and history has seen them as right. I think that from what you're saying, it sounds like the only way justice can ever be put into place is if a government does it. Is that
yes? It's
true?
through the power of the group, which I mean, on the part of nations, that's obviously through the government. It is always tied to the system itself. We look back on various figures throughout history, and we're like, yeah, we applaud them because we look at it from our modern perspective and say they did the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Atheo Rakatru said, John Brown.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, awesome guy. He did the right thing. But then I also look at it and go, but it was also illegal.
Right. But it was just.
It was. I wouldn't say it was just. I would say it was the moral thing to do. It was the right thing to do. But I'm also judging that based on my modern morality and my modern ideas regarding what is right and what we should do.
I think that justice as a concept, to me, should not be owned by governments, but often is. I think that if you want to talk about justice, just in general terms, I know we can get more intense, and just a slapdash definition here is, people being held accountable for their actions.
Mm-hmm. And I would say publicly held accountable for their actions.
I see. If somebody is held accountable for their actions and it's in private, is it justice? If somebody if somebody beats their wife and she whoops the holy hell out of him, make sure he can't ever put a hand on her again, that's justice to me. I didn't need to find out.
See, and I'm supposed to be, because I'm stuck on this idea of justice being intrinsically tied to the group dynamics, to the group as a larger whole. I mean, you could say that, if he is publicly shamed by his local community for it, yes, that would be justice.
What if we moved your definition of justice to law? Law is public.
Yes.
And so,
it is. And which is generally how, after our groups reached a certain size, it kind of just had to be law, and it has to. We have to have these justice systems, and people who literally it's their job to mete out justice and to oversee the process.
Yeah, and I think that if we maybe we can say that laws aspire to achieve justice. But I think that
I would I think that's too general.
Well, an example.
It's too specific.
Well,
because laws in general can be anything from how fast you drive to I don't know, sprinklers in high rises.
but okay. So first off, those are actually more, no. So when you're talking about zoning laws and laws around driving, those are to protect the safety of people. So it may be tangentially related to the well-being of people, but ultimately it is, right? We look at the sprinklers in high rises, and it may seem obscure until we remember, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, fire. And the people jumping out of a building because they couldn't get out of a burning building. And so, like, ultimately there, I think that we can still say that these laws aspire
It
to
had more to do with
achieve.
locked fire exits, but
Well, so, but
but
ultimately,
yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah, ultimately
Sorry.
what I'm trying to do is I'm separating laws from the concept of justice.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's also what I was trying to do, because it was like justice is us holding people accountable for not meeting the laws, for not following the laws.
Okay, but people can hold people accountable for not following, maybe, like, it doesn't need to be illegal for it to be wrong.
No, it's not, and that's what social consequences are for.
So can social consequences be justice? Because all I'm saying is justice
can.
held.
I think it can be justice, but it's a different type of justice. It's still the same. It's still very much a group is holding someone accountable publicly for their actions, whether good or bad.
Okay.
Whether that's through the justice system itself or through the court of public opinion, as we like to call it.
Well, and the execution of punishments.
Whether good or bad, too.
Like-
I mean, it's
Yeah. Like punishments are not things that government should only be the ones doing. That, you know, so
Yeah.
there are social punishments for that kind of shit too. And all I'm saying is that those punishments, you're right, the holding people accountable when it's not done by a government, that is a kind of justice, and that kind of justice is called vigilantism.
not quite.
Why?
I think you're getting. So vigilantism is individual.
Yep.
That's an individual person. That's Superman deciding, I'm tired of having to deal with Lex Luthor, so I'm just going to pick him up. I'm going to take him to my Fortress of Solitude, and I'm just going to imprison him there.
Mm-hmm.
That's vigilantism.
Yeah.
That is, yeah.
So what about those crazy groups of rednecks in the hills that, you know, put together militias and want to go and make things right in their minds? I think they would view themselves as vigilantes. I think the law would view them as vigilantes.
Yes, they would.
I
think because they also understand that the majority of people would not agree with them,
well,
even if they don't want to admit that.
so ultimately, though, I don't think we can bake that into a definition. So,
True. And I would say, but see, here's the thing, that's where it gets very complicated, because the larger group looks at what they do as bad and wrong, and they shouldn't do that, they shouldn't be allowed to do that. But if you really break it down to what the concept of justice is,
mm-hmm.
technically what they're doing is enacting a type of justice. It is not a type of justice that, like, literally everyone else would agree with.
Well, and ultimately...
And, of course, people generally don't think that they're bad people. People generally think that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, which is why that would be vigilantism. Yeah, the thing is, like, justice is not what was right. It's just what people thought was right, you know?
Yeah.
And because that shifts, like, we can get into that, right? Holding somebody accountable for actions implicitly means that you had a value judgment, and that value judgment said that somebody broke those rules. You know, children need to be protected. Someone exploits or hurts a child, you want to hold that person accountable for their actions. Implicit in that is the idea that hurting children is wrong. And so that is true. You know, it is always going to be flexible. It's never set in stone. That said, if somebody is enacting that without a government, it is still justice. It is just vigilantism.
Sorry, I just saw Sir Skelebate. By the way, you misgendered me earlier, Sir Skelebate.
Oh.
It's Caesar, not she.
Did I misgender you? I haven't done that in years.
Not you, Sir Skelebate.
Oh.
Sir Skelebate.
Oh.
Not you. But, yeah.
I was going to say, I haven't done that in years. Are you kidding me?
No, not you. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply that.
No. Okay, sorry. I was just dialed in on the justice thing.
It's.
I think... Go ahead.
I'm getting distracted, and I only just took my ADHD meds too. So
No, honestly, I think that the problem is when it comes to talking about vigilantism and justice, I made a promise to V that in doing this show, I would not put us on a list. And in order to do that, I can't talk too much about that kind of thing, but I can talk about the definition. And that's my definition. I hope that causes other people to think about it and talk about it, because, we need to talk about what the role is of vigilantism, how that's not beneficial in the long run for society, but seeing when that kind of thing happens, we're not saying that it wasn't justice. We're just saying that it's not preferred,
Yeah.
but it's still justice.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is because as our societies got more complex, a lot of ideas regarding how groups operate and how we do things started needing to be codified and stuff and made more universal and a lot less feels.
But that you can't extricate those things. I think that's a problem in the skeptic space. People think that you need to remove your feels from it. Feels have a lot to do with it.
Mean,
like the whole reason we put people in. Go ahead.
Sorry, that's kind of my point. Is that because it's been a slow evolution away from this, but it all still is based in this group feels, group morality. It's this idea of how do we form a cohesive group, and a lot of that is instinct, because we're a social species and all that. But as we became more complex, then it becomes a lot more difficult to actually point at something and just be like, that is, definitely wrong or whatever. Just like, well, a lot of it's based on feeling, because when we sit down and think about it, I don't know. I mean, because
I'm
not being very coherent here. I'm
no,
sorry.
No. So I can pick up from here. The reason that we put people in jails, right? We don't put people in jails necessarily because we want to keep them away from the rest of society. We put them in jail because we feel like they do not deserve freedom. That is the pejorative, not pejorative. That is what's the word I'm thinking of?
Retributive.
Retributive. Thank you. That is the retributive style of punishment that we give. It's retribution, and that is entirely based on feels. I'm right there with you.
It's the retributive, the revenge form of justice, which, I mean, and that became sort of the preferred way of doing things since we actually had a way to actually imprison people for long periods of time without literally killing them or whatever.
Yeah, I think ultimately we're going to wind up just agreeing on everything from here, but I appreciate the on talking about those things, because that is at the core of the conversation, and I really appreciate it.
I guess it really bothered me what you said about Superman just kidnapping Lex Luthor, because I'm sitting there like, that's a crime.
But it would still be justice. And if it is justice and it's done by an individual, then it's vigilantism.
If I know that my neighbor up the street is I don't know, kicks puppies or something, and I decide that I'm going to kidnap him and keep him in my basement to punish him for it because I don't have any actual proof, so I can't go to the authorities to prove that, he's guilty. Well, the person who's committing a crime there and the person who's in the wrong is me.
I mean, yes, and if you were preventing that person from kicking puppies or something like that, then I think that you would have been taking, the well-being of people around you into consideration. You were doing something about it. What you were doing was vigilantism, because you had an idea of what justice was, and you acted on it.
Yeah, I don't know. It bothers me because I'm sitting there I don't like calling that justice, because
and the thing is, for me, it bothers me.
What if I was wrong? What if this person wasn't even kicking puppies?
Sure.
What if he was
Absolutely.
feeding puppies?
But when you say but here's the thing is it is an uncomfortable thing, and we're stuck with that. But it's also uncomfortable when you go, legal is not justice. When you say, but that's illegal, that doesn't mean that it's immoral. That doesn't mean it's unethical. It just means that it's illegal. But that doesn't mean it's the wrong thing. It just means that the government said it's the wrong thing. And
I don't attach a moral judgment to whether or not something is illegal, not necessarily. And let me just, of that, I guess I don't necessarily attach a moral judgment to whether or not something is just.
Yeah. And I, the first thing that comes to mind is sharing sites like Pirate Bay, Napster, LimeWire, those kinds of sites.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that they're doing anything uniquely immoral or unethical.
Yeah.
But they're doing
I mean,
something illegal.
honestly, probably all of us here have sailed the seven
yeah.
seas.
So your point in that's illegal, I don't care. And I don't think that has anything to do with whether or not it was just.
Yeah, I don't know. It bothers me on a level, because then it makes me feel like, and it probably does come back to a similar situation where Superman is highly aware of his own power in relation to those around him, and the fact that he could just take over the earth and just enforce his will on everyone.
Mm-hmm. And he does in the Injustice universe.
He does in the Injustice universe. He also does it in a couple other groups, or a couple other storylines. But it's like, that's why democracy and following and allowing the system to actually work is so important for him, because he is aware of that power disparity.
Where does democracy come into it? Democracy doesn't come into it at all.
Well, in theory, the United States is a democracy. You know what I mean?
But here's, like, you can have justice in a communist society. You can have things that are illegal.
Yes.
You can have all of those
I'm
things.
not even saying that communism isn't necessarily democratic either.
Or an anarchist society or an oligarchy. Like, those concepts all still play out.
Yeah, I think it's a case of, like, he doesn't like taking away the agency of others. And I know I feel equally strongly about the agency of others and their right to self-determination.
Yes. And
and I guess I think of it more along the lines of, like, with, like, other countries and stuff like that. I'm like, the United States should not be interfering or attempting to interfere with their elections or with, all that, because they have the right to self-determination. Who the hell are we to tell them who should be elected or what kind of government they should have?
While I agree, I think we've started to go far afield. So I'm
Yes,
gonna cut here. No, we're super good. Bree, thank you for calling in.
Yep. All right.
Take care of yourself. Bye. If we are at a point where we are just having fun talking, that means I'm at least doing a good job as the other side of that conversation. Let's move on and talk to Alfred in Texas. Alfred, you're live on the show.
Hello.
Hello. All right, we have moved into talking about justice, which was my evil plan all along. You have fallen for my trap, Alfred. What's on your mind? What's going on?
So, to be clear, do you believe in retributive justice?
No, I don't.
Retributive justice?
No, but I understand what people think that its role is. And so when I'm talking about it, I can, try and contextualize it. If I live in a system that thinks that the death penalty is the case, then I can say that that system thinks that the death penalty is justice. Like it's all contextual. But why? What's up?
Well, you seem to be implying that, like, we dole out punishments because people actually deserve those punishments.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct about that?
So,
because I personally, I don't believe in punishment in that way. Like, we're going to lock you up because you deserve it, because you're a terrible person. Like, that doesn't really make sense to me. I can see punishment as, like, look, if you do this, this is going to happen. Everybody, look what happened to this guy. See that? Don't do that, or this will happen to you. Like, that's the only kind of punishment that makes sense to me.
Well, I think that sadly we live in a time where historically, what's the word? I swear language is just not coming to me today, Alfred. When a community says you're not allowed to come back, you're out. What is that word?
Cancel culture?
No, not cancel culture. Exile. I think that there used to be a time when you could be exiled from your community. You can be kicked out. You're no longer allowed to be a part of this anymore. I think that exile would be a just thing to do to people who have earned it. But we live in a world where there's nowhere to exile them to. And so we imprison them instead, which is a less just way of resolving that. But ultimately, like someone being held accountable for their actions, I think is the term that I was throwing around with Bree in the call earlier. So let's use that. Can people hold others accountable for their actions? And would that be justice to you?
See, I really do not like that language of holding people accountable,
Okay.
because my experience, or what I think I might be detecting, is that kind of language is usually used by people who want to punish other people or who want to keep that door open. And it's like, it usually, I'm not, tell me where I'm wrong, it usually comes from vengeful people who want to hold other people by their neck. And it's like, I'm a vengeful person, and I know that's not acceptable, but I've found the language to make my lust for revenge seem moral. And not only moral, but morally acceptable, noble. Like, it's a good thing that I'm holding this person by his neck for what he did. Like, that's kind of what I think is behind the mask. And I could be wrong, but that's what I kind of take from that. Oh, we're just holding you accountable.
Yeah. No, I get that. Can I reflect that back at you maybe in a different way and see if we're on the same page?
Sure.
So if somebody were to murder a member of my family, someone close to me, I would want to kill them back.
Mm-hmm.
So I should not be the arbiter of justice for what happened, because I am very much not looking for the right thing. I'm looking to hurt them, right? That there's that vengeful attitude. But if we find out that someone is, I'm just going for the low hanging fruit. You know, if we find out that someone is abusing children in our community, right? Let's say we lived in the same community, and we took their ability to hurt those children away from them, right? We did impede on their self-determination by removing children from their care and then making sure that they could not hurt children in the future. That would be justice.
Mm-hmm.
So
see, I see a difference.
That is holding them accountable for their actions.
In my mind, there's a difference between punishing and just making sure that someone is not able to hurt other people again.
So, but I think
like
that
if you have mentally.
But I think that saying, "Hey,
Sorry?
you're not allowed to live within 2 miles of a school," is a punishment.
Yeah.
And it's just.
Well, so like, there are psychopaths, like poor bastards who just can't help themselves, just want to hurt people.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sure maybe you kind of feel for them. And it's just an unfortunate thing that we have to put them away just for the safety of other people. In my view, I wouldn't be punishing that person. I would just be making the world a safer place for everyone else. And it's really sad that they have to be put away. It really is. It's just one of those things you have to do. But I wouldn't find myself saying, like, we're holding that person accountable. Like,
why? So let's say I had IBS and I was just farting like crazy, and I got into an elevator and made a whole lot of people's day real bad. I couldn't help it, but I should take some responsibility. There should be something, Eric, you need to take the stairs, at least when you can, like if I can't help it, that's understood, but that doesn't mean that I'm without blame or I'm not taking accountability for the impact of what happened. I can accidentally hurt somebody and I still need to own up to having hurt them, even if it wasn't my intent.
Well, I think intent matters.
I mean,
but I know I said before that.
Yeah, I'm not saying intent doesn't matter. I'm saying that impact does matter too, right? Like you can argue about your intent, but if you had an impact, then you also need to own what that impact was.
Hmm.
Right? Like I can try and do something, and even if I thought I was doing the right thing, if it led to hurting other people by accident, I still need to be, I still need to take ownership of what happened.
Okay.
You know, like
Let me segue a little.
like let's say really quick, let's say you see some elderly person leaving the store and you want to be nice and you open the door for them and you open the door and you smack somebody in the face with the door, right? Your intent was to hold the door open for this person. That's not a bad thing. You hit somebody in the face with a door. You weren't trying to, but they're hurt. So you own the impact by going, "Hey, are you okay? I didn't see you. I'm sorry about that." Right? Like, just because you weren't trying to hit them doesn't mean that you shouldn't also own that impact.
Well, I mean, just how far can this go? Because you could also say that the manufacturer of the door is responsible, or maybe it's not a very noticeable door. So then the person who engineered the door, who designed it, the people who put it there, they're all in some sense responsible.
So
And it's really difficult to pin it on one person,
I
is
think,
what I'm saying.
yeah, I think that if you want to get into like legal culpability, we could get into that. But I was trying to go with a really basic. If I opened a door and accidentally hit someone in the face, I'm going to go, "Hey, shit, I'm sorry." I'm going to say I'm sorry, even though I was not intending to hit them in the face. I'm saying I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to, but ultimately, yeah, I hit you in the face. Do you need some ice? Like, let's take care of you. My actions had an impact, no matter what my intent was, and I'm going to own that impact and take responsibility.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense, or like, is there a conceptual difference?
No, I just have to think about it more.
Like, yeah, I think one of the things to consider is some basic trolley problem. Like, if you're not doing a thing, are you more or less culpable in what happens because of it? You know? Right? You see the train coming down the tracks and it's about to hit 5 people. You don't want to pull the lever to divert the train because then you're now involved. If you weren't involved, then you don't have culpability. Like, but anyway, that'll get way down off a different, track. Was there anything else that you wanted to kind of bring up or talk about?
I mean, unless you have other callers you need to get to.
No, I think you're going to be the last one. We'll probably wrap up a little bit early. I'll be excited to hop into the after show. But if there is something else, I'd be happy to take it.
Sure. Well, you referenced the J6 committee and how you were disappointed in it.
Extremely.
You said it made Republicans look like they were trying to hold their own accountable. Do I get that correct?
So there are, what is her name? Was it Elizabeth Cheney, who was the head of the January 6th committee?
Yes.
I think she was trying to hold her side accountable. There were establishment Republicans who were heading it that were trying to hold their side accountable. But I think that the context of it was wrong. I think that it should have been led by the Justice Department.
Well, it was taxpayer funded, which really offended me, and I watched more than I care to admit.
I watched every minute of
candidly, it was really.
Yep.
I mean, in my opinion, I think some talented high schoolers could have pulled off what they did, which was basically it was a glorified PowerPoint presentation. And I think the motivation seemed to me to be assigning moral culpability to Republicans, particularly Trump and his enablers. And I think they did that pretty well. They really played up J6.
But
that's what I took from it.
But they did it in a context that was entirely wrong as well. Like, I think that Mike Pence should have enacted, is it the 25th Amendment? relieving the president of his
I think-
responsibilities and taking charge as president because the president is no longer able to fulfill his duties. I think Mike Pence should have been charged for not doing what he needed to do. I think that there are a lot of establishment Republicans who were not investigated, not looked at too closely because it would have been strategically bad for them in the long run. So they picked winners and losers out of it. And yes, they absolutely shamed the losers. But those most of the people involved saw no legal,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think there was justice in it. That
That's
said,
interesting.
I think that Biden wanted Republicans to do it because he wanted to be seen as bipartisan. He wanted to be seen as reaching across the aisle, and he cared more about that than he cared about that justice actually happening.
Interesting.
Like you can get one. You can't get both at the same time. And he chose his legacy over justice happening. And I will never forgive Joe Biden for that. We can talk about all the good things he did, but for that, no, he will never be forgiven by me.
All right. Thank you for taking my call.
Hey, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you back. Take care, man. All right. I think I'm going to start wrapping up and head over to the after show. We do hop into Discord and we hang out. It's a great after show. You should join us. I need to read Super Chats, though. It is that time. Jen Graham sent £2. Thank you, Jen. It says, Batwoman was the character, not Batgirl. God damn, you are right. It is Batwoman. I apologize. Batgirl was Barbara Gordon, right? Is that right? Was I thinking about Oracle as a separate character? Let me know. My Unfinished Journey sent $2.22. Thank you, My Unfinished Journey. It says, Hail Eric and hail substantive aspirational goals. Thank you. I sincerely appreciate it. You are both helping make the show happen by supporting it. Again, if y'all do want to support the show, consider becoming a patron. Patreon.com/SkepticGeneration. That's Patreon.com/SkepticGeneration. Me and my cat, we're going to relax. We'd love to hang out with you in the after show. But until then, thank you for joining. We're going to have a fun time next week. But until then, hold on just a second. Man.